Hello and welcome into the Who's On podcast, part of the Saber Podcast Network. And here we are back for season 3 of the Who's On podcast. And no better way to kick it off than our good old season preview for Virginia football. And I've got the usual crew back with me. Greg Madia from the Daily Progress, Jacquie Franciulli from Wahoos 24/7, back here for the third year. And I think each year we've gotten a little bit better at doing this. Greg, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, Preston. Always a joy to do this season preview with the two of you.
Well, it's become tradition now. It wouldn't be a football season without it, Jacquie.
No, for sure. And like you said, we've been getting pretty close on those predictions every year.
And I think last year I was going back and looking right before we started this, and I think we were like in the right ballpark on some of those, but it's even when you think you got it like locked in, like I think this year we have a pretty good idea, but it's still, you just never know. Like something will happen during the season. But I want to start off with kind of how we start most of our post game talks about UVA football is with one big take, but we're gonna do season preview style. So I just like one big picture idea or just kind of something that's on your mind as this football season gets started. Jacquie, why don't you lead off here?
Yeah, I think it's been when you talk to the staff, when you talk to the players, the word that you keep hearing is competitive depth, competitive stamina. You hear this often, and it's something they started last year, but this year I feel like they see it in the roster more so than even last year. I think that has been the biggest thing for me, especially in positions where we didn't see that often. If you followed UVA football, and I say that the O-line actually has depth, that you have a starting 5 that you're pretty confident in, and then you have a 6 and a 7 that you're like, oh, they can rotate in and they have experience. You're like, I came back to the UVA in 2021. That was the O-line's always been the question. So I think that's what stands out to me in that, and on defensive secondary, because that's the other position Virginia hasn't had much depth in recent years. So those two positions, when you have competitive depth, is big for Virginia. And I think that's the kind of the big storyline coming off of this offseason is they do have that depth in positions, and historically Virginia has not had.
Yeah, every year it feels like we talk a lot about competitive depth in the fall camp, and there's a couple positions here and there where you feel like they might have it, and then you get into the season and they lose 4 or 5 running backs, and it's like, well, do you have the depth now? But it does feel like they have that depth across all the positions. Greg, what's the one big take for you going in this year?
It's age. This is an old team, right? This is as old as you can pretty much get in college football. I mean, you look at the O-line first and foremost. It's 164 combined career starts. They're going to lean into that experience, right? Mills and Metcalf are seventh-year players. Talking to Mills in training camp, he had maybe the quote of the camp. He goes, Greg, I'm older than NIL. I'm older than the transfer portal. So to me, it kind of just speaks though to what they have across the board. It's guys who've been at different schools, who've had different experiences. That's not only on the O-line with those starting 5, but you look at the D-line, like Fisher Kamak is older now. They brought in Matthew Fobbs-White, who's been a couple of different places. In the secondary, right? It's Hillman and Christian Ellis, older players like Jalen McNair. I don't know if he's going to be on the 2 deep. He's in his 7th season. Was a really, really good player at Buffalo the last few years. But he'll help on special teams at least. I think the age and experience, right? It cuts out a lot of the learning curve and a lot of the questions of if a guy can gel. No, like they're in their last seasons of college football, or maybe their second to last season in college football. They got to make the most of it. So I'm fascinated to see, because you saw it last year, right, with the quarterback and the O-line, Chandler Morris and that group. Jamari Taylor certainly fit that mold. This team is even older across the board, and I'm wondering, does that pay off for UVA this coming fall?
I think we talked a lot about last year across college football that age wins in college football right now. Look at Indiana. I mean, as a prime example last year. And then that's just something that I feel like gets lost a little bit over the offseason, although you've seen everyone kind of compile these stats of, who has the most combined snaps or who has the most returning production. And Virginia has the most snaps coming back in the Power Four, like by thousands, coming back this year. I've seen, CBS put that out. ESPN just did that too. So, yeah, this experience speaks for itself. I'm glad we kind of all went in different areas because I want to go towards. All right, you got the 11-win season. You broke through last year. Well, everything that we've seen in this preseason, from at least especially a national perspective, is like, can you do it again? Can you really, like, can you climb back up that mountaintop? Everyone keeps saying Virginia's got another pretty easy schedule as it lays out. And Virginia has a lot of experience, and Virginia did well this offseason in the portal, but you're still seeing them picked, 6th in the ACC. You're still seeing, they get one vote in the preseason AP top 25 poll over some other teams that questionable at best that are ahead of them in the poll. Greg doesn't have a vote anymore, so he can now speak freely about the rest of the preseason top 25. But it really feels like it's setting up. And I even saw The Athletic does like a coaching tiers list, and they just came out with that. And Tony Elliott is in the same tier as Syracuse's Fran Brown and Boston College's Bill O'Brien and Florida State's Mike Norvell, 3 guys that we know for a fact are on the hot seat coming into this year. Tony Elliott's nowhere near a hot seat, and his seat is as pretty chilled out as it gets right now. And so it's like everyone is kind of setting this up as like, all right, Virginia, that was cute last year. Could you do it again? Can you win another 8-9 games this year? Could you do even better than that? So I think that's kind of what's stuck in my mind. And speaking to players this fall camp, as y'all have as well, there's a hunger in this team because as much as they accomplished last year, they didn't accomplish everything. They didn't do everything that they wanted to do. They still lost the ACC championship game. They still didn't make the college football playoff when it was all right there ahead of them, and it was an overtime period away from happening for this team. So that's where I'm kind of looking this year is like, all right, now it's time for can you do it again?
No, that's fair. I mean, it's a major question nationally, but I think, like you said, within the program, there's the sense of last year they were so close to getting into the college football playoff, and that truly would have shocked people, right?
Yeah.
Even beyond the 11 wins, they came up short, and after all those close games they played, right, all those dramatic finishes they had, and they came out on the right side of throughout the regular season, right? You think about the Washington State game, the Louisville game on the road, winning against Florida State in double overtime. They had blown Duke out just weeks earlier and then couldn't beat them in a championship game as they were trying to rally. So the group that's still intact from last year, the returning players certainly feel that, and that'll be something to track throughout this season. And a big reason why some of those veterans came back, right, and decided maybe not to go to the NFL yet. I'm thinking like Mikhail Boley and Noah Josie, who said, probably you might be able to get back to the ACC championship game and maybe play in a playoff if you come back and stay together.
Jackie, I had the question posed to me recently. I guess Virginia's over/under win total for this year is 7.5 right now. And someone was asking me, is that fair? Is it unfair? Where do you land on that win total?
Well, considering in the AC ballot, I think I put them finishing third. I actually feel like that I'm going for the over on that. It's been kind of interesting to see just the national thought process on where Virginia is. You see like you said, the age thing, and you see how they say there's more experience and all that, but it doesn't show up every time you see a preseason ballot. I feel like that is ignored whenever you're looking at the ACC preseason ballot too, and in favor of historical teams rather than what's going on paper right now. I think ESPN actually in their football power index had them finishing like 9-3 with the probability scale. I think that was something I remember writing a story about that. Like I think it was around July, and I think they had them in 9-3, and I feel more comfortable on that side of things, going around 9-3. I think that is more realistic for me. I think when you look at this schedule and you look what Virginia returns, I think Virginia does have a good plan, a good stepping stone, a good journey, if you want to say, to go to AC championship. Now, there's a couple of games that I've circled as in this is a toss-up, and I think Virginia is going to have a fight. And I think a lot. I'm like Greg. I don't like talking about this as a big game for the season. This will make or break a season. But it'll be interesting to see that opener against NC State, right? That's kind of like the where we're going to see the bellwether game for Virginia. But I think 7-5 is low for Virginia going into the season.
I think it's I'm not a betting man by any stretch of the imagination, but that's easy money. If I'm anyone that is into that, like I'd hammer the over on the 7.5. Just given the schedule and given the experience on this team, I think that they'll get. I think 8 wins is kind of the lower end of what this Virginia team wants to accomplish this year. Greg.
Yeah, I think it's just a little low. I mean, between the schedule and I know you don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, right?
Yeah.
Like last year, nobody thought Virginia and Duke, like the teams with Virginia and Duke on the ACC schedule, probably thinking, all right, those are 2 games you probably should be able to win. And Virginia and Duke turned out to be 2 of the better teams in the league in conference play. So you don't know exactly how it's going to shake out with the schedule, but with a pretty manageable home slate. Like you would think Virginia, they got 7 home games too, right? That's another part of this season because the game got moved from Brazil to Charlottesville. You've got an extra home game. So you've got 7 home games, only 5 road games. And then 2 of the road games are pretty easy trips right down to Blacksburg and down, not in terms of the environment, but in terms of the travel. Blacksburg and then Winston-Salem, like you've got a chance to get pretty comfortable if you're Virginia. So to me, I think 7.5 based on that alone, combined with the age and the experience of having so many veteran players, it's a little bit low.
Yeah, you could make some easy money off that if you're not in the Commonwealth. All right, let's get into it now. It's time for the season predictions, and I changed it up a little bit this year. I don't have like key upset potential in there because I feel like just across the board for Virginia, like even the games that they're not favored in or probably have they'll be an underdog going into that. It's not like a crazy underdog going into this year. Like probably the biggest one is SMU, but I don't think there's any crazy upsets. So I went with best home game on the schedule. And it's really tempting just to take the first game of the season because there's so much hype and so much build up to it. Greg, where would you go for best home game on the Virginia schedule?
I do think it's the NC State game. I mean, let's I think you look at what's beyond NC State and the Wolfpack, at least it gives you a little sense of rivalry, right? Neighboring state. There's some recent history, right? The 2 teams played a non-conference game last year. There was a dramatic finish on a Friday night in Scott Stadium a couple of years ago when Brennan Armstrong returned to town with the Wolfpack. With this NC State team and CJ Bailey entering his 3rd year as a starter, he really tested Virginia last year. And Virginia's defense at the beginning of the season, it was a week 2 game, was not quite gelling like it was late in the season. So this is an opening punch you can throw if you're Virginia's defense to show you're more ready than you were last year. And you think back to last season, really didn't affect the outcome of the year for Virginia because it wasn't a league game.
Yeah.
But it's still one they look back at thinking they probably should have won that game in Raleigh. They probably should have won that game if there's a play made here or there. Right, I think about Bailey sidestepping Landon Danley on the blitz, and I talked to Landon about that. He's like, God, it still haunts me. But I think this game out of the gate, especially coming off the year Virginia did with 11 wins, like the fan base should be hyped. I know Virginia's trying like crazy to sell out Scott Stadium. It's a showcase game, week 0. You got everybody, all eyes on Scott Stadium. Like that's an important from that perspective. That's the best home game. Start the year off with it.
I mean, it seems like there's 7 home games this year, and we're talking about the week 0 one as like the best one in the slate. It feels weird. Jacquie, are you sticking with the same game or are you going elsewhere?
I'm sticking with the same game. I mean, you could say Duke too because it's a revenge for the AC championship game, but the roster is so different they don't have Mensa, so I can't do that one because there's not that sense of revenge there. With CJ Bailey, there's a quarterback that they want to prove. I mean, Jason Hammond and him came from South Florida together. They know each other well. I mean, you have that little bit of rivalry there. So I just think that that game is so important to set the tone. And because it got moved, I think if it was in Brazil, I wouldn't have this answer. I know it's a home game, but it was not
Correct.
as important. But
Yeah.
because it came home, you're trying to build momentum from an 11 win season. I think it has so many stuff happening outside, off the field, that I think that's why this is so important. I mean, on the recruiting front, they're trying to build this as one of the biggest recruiting weekends because there's not many other teams that they're competing against. So they're trying to bring some of their top recruits, everyone to come on that game day. And our list has already got a lot of confirmed visitors on Wahoo's 24/7. So I think just the recruiting angle, if you show those recruits, there's 2028s, because 2027, I know a lot of people have told me, how come we didn't have more high school recruiting momentum after 11 win season? I was like, technically, by the time the 11 win season happened, that 2027 class, you already have kind of those inroads a little bit. I know you have the official visits and all that, but you're kind of almost towards the finish line in those cases. Now, the 2028 class is when you can really gain that momentum. It usually takes about a class after your successful season, and especially if you show them that you're starting off where you left off. So I think that's why, for me, that is an important game, not just on the football field, but also those stuff that happens off the field. It gives them recruiting momentum too.
No, I think you're both right. I mean, it was when it was in Brazil, I kind of had this game as a toss-up game, and I was like, I might even pick Virginia to lose this game just because who knows what happens in Brazil. But now that it's back in Charlottesville, like it's a pretty important game to win to start off the season, kind of keep that forward momentum. I will throw out another game just so, we have 7 home games this year for Virginia. And so let's mention one other one. Cal is a game late in the season that I have on my radar. I think Cal could be pretty sneaky good. That's another team I feel like maybe some of the national people are kind of sleeping on. JKS is obviously, he's back, and you could start any good team with a quarterback like that. And they got some other interesting pieces. So I'll be interested to see kind of where that Cal team is later in the year. Duke would have been a great one, Friday night game. But like you said, if Mintz is not there and so many pieces are different, it doesn't have the same feel to it. Best road game for Virginia this year. I think there's a clear choice in my mind. But there's some actually pretty intriguing road games here, Jackie.
Yeah, it's actually hard to pick because there is a couple of games where I could say SMU, because if they're in a fight for the ACC championship game, that is a very important game for me. I think whoever wins that will go to Charlotte at the end of the day if everything kind of goes how you expect there for both teams. Honestly, for me, Virginia Tech is going to be the best road game because of all the stuff that's happened off season. All like all the interviews, all the hype around Blacksburg, and then everything with Virginia trying to build the program and then fighting it out head to head in some of the recruiting battles too. So I think the environment in that road game, especially if, let's say, Virginia Tech has a good season, Virginia has a good season, that game could mean something. I think that's why I would choose that game, just because of all the intangibles that's going around. If I talk about ACC battles, I would pick SMU. If I'm talking about all the other stuff that gets fans riled up, I'll get Virginia Tech.
Off-season champions versus the reigning state champions. That's how you can bill that one. Greg, are you going Virginia Tech as well?
No, no, I'm going with the Ponies down in Dallas. They've run the league, right?
Yeah.
Since they've been in it. They have yet to lose a home game in the ACC. I mean, that to me, that speaks to the challenge that Virginia will have on its hands when it goes to Dallas to play SMU. That program is what are they, 14-2 since it joined the league. They have the most ACC wins over the last 2 years. Like I said, they haven't lost at home yet. Where Virginia will have to try to win. You throw in that it appears to be their most challenging game on the slate and their most pivotal in terms of potentially trying to get to Charlotte. That to me is the one you circle. You throw in that Rhett Lashley's just done a phenomenal job at SMU. It's a good kind of barrier game. Like I think about a couple of years ago when SMU came to Charlottesville, Virginia was in no position, right, to win that game. SMU was streaking toward the playoff with Kevin Jennings in his first season as a starter. And now Virginia's built up a little bit. You want to see how it stacks up. Everybody thought that ACC championship game last year was going to end up toward the end of the season being Virginia against SMU until SMU tripped up in the final week of the regular season at California when they lost a heartbreaker. Turns out, Kendrick Raphael, the running back for Cal then, scored the game-winning touchdown. He's transferred to SMU now, and he's paired with Kevin Jennings. They have a really good old lineman, and left tackle is probably going to be a first-round draft pick. Their defense is always solid, always has a number of different pass rushers. I look at that SMU game as certainly the best road game. Maybe not for the environment, but in terms of the challenge for UVA, that one sticks out to me.
No, it's the same one I had circled. I just think that like you both have mentioned, like when you get to that point in the season, like that's going to have a lot of implications in the ACC conference race. And if you want to get to Charlotte again, if you're Virginia, I think you have to win that game, because that SMU is the type of team you're going to be competing with to get in that, to get into Charlotte, to face whoever it may be. Key game for the season. So this is a little bit different. I kind of want to take this from the viewpoint of this is a game that could kind of, shift where Virginia's, end of season outcome is. Greg, there's already a lot of people online that are saying this opening week 0 game is the most important game of the Tony Elliott era. I've never heard that before about any game before. So like that must mean something, right?
Not the ones last year after they lost to Wake Forest in the regular season. Not the ones last year where they're hanging on by a thread to get to Charlotte. Those weren't the biggest games of the Tony Elliott era. Not the ACC championship game that could have put them in a playoff. My goodness, let's pump the brakes.
There's always another one.
Let's pump the brakes with the week 0 biggest game of the year. Now it is important because it's a league game, right? Yeah. Virginia benefited last year from that NC State game being, an out of conference game, right? It didn't count in the league standings, so they were able to overcome it. To me, I just go back to the SMU game. If you think Virginia is going to be pretty good, then that's the game they got to win. If they're going to get to Charlotte, if you think they're good enough to take care of business in week 0. And then down in Tallahassee, like that to me says, then where's the one that poses the most problems? And that's SMU. So to me, if Virginia right now, I kind of have them pegged in the 3rd spot, right? If they want to change the trajectory of their season, they got to win in Dallas.
Yeah, I have Florida State right before that, just because I think last year that was such a you saw how Virginia season went after that, and you saw how Florida State season went after that.
Yeah.
Like they just both went completely different directions. And I feel like it's kind of at the similar point of the season. It's a road game down in Tallahassee. I just feel like it's going to be kind of similar where like this could make or break Florida State's season. And so I think they're going to come in with a lot of juice for that. Mike Norvell, he may already be on his way out, but he could be still fighting for his job at that point in the season, and trying to turn things around there in Tallahassee. And I think for Virginia, like you want to win that type of game to kind of set you off in that trajectory. And we already made the point, SMU, that'll be huge in the ACC championship race, but I'm going Florida State just because it's also a place Virginia hasn't had a ton of success in the past, but and it'll be a tough environment down there. Jackie.
Yeah, I actually agree with Preston, because SMU is going to be a key game for the ACC title race, but Florida State is a hard road game going into Tallahassee. Mike Norvell and Knowles haven't had the best ACC record since that undefeated season that they didn't get into the college football playoffs, and since the portal era starts, they haven't really managed the portal era very well. So that game's going to have some implications for them. So you play a little bit differently when you have some implications there. And I'm just looking at Florida State's schedule going into that game. I mean, they play SMU and Alabama in between 2 cupcakes there. But that's a tough start for Florida State. So
is he going to be the head coach by then?
That's what I was going to say.
Question.
Like that could either Norvell might not be the coach by then, or he needs that win to stay as the head coach of Florida State. So that's why when I look at that schedule going into that Florida State Virginia game, I'm like, the Florida State team might be on a sense of urgency in that. So I think that's why that's important. Because if you lose that game, if you're Virginia, forget about the rest, right? Like you have to fight from behind at that point,
Yeah.
and the SMU game becomes even more important, right? Every game, I'm going to quote every coach, every game is a key game moving forward. But yeah, so I think that's why I choose the FSU game on the road.
Are we about to start talking nameless, faceless opponents out there?
Yeah.
um, and yeah, I think another thing, like you said, like that. I think UVA has a very good chance of being unbeaten going into that Florida State game if they win the opener against NC State. And so, like you're talking about, just being right on the right trajectory going into the SMU game if you win that Florida State game. So it's like kind of the game before the game. And if you lose the game before the game, then that game doesn't mean as much. And you're kind of fighting from behind at that point. We've touched on it a little bit here, but is this the year that we stop having to talk about Ahmad Hawkins in Blacksburg in 1998 as the last time that Virginia won in Blacksburg? Look, Ahmad has to see that clip every year because that's the last time it happened. So is this the year that we can finally stop showing that clip every single time we get to that week?
Last year, I think every time we talk to players, we always say, this is the first time UVA did this. This is the first time UVA did that. I can see us doing that again this year on several of these instances if like they reach that potential that we see from this team. We talk about experience, talk about age. When you have those close games, right? Those rivalry games, there's a different sense when you have a mature team like that. Like Greg said, you have 6-year guys on the O line, those guys are in their mid 20s, right? That's a different type of maturity level you have in that locker room, and that kind of goes around in different positions. So in Blacksburg, you want that maturity, right? In those emotionally driven areas. And I do think this is going to be the year Virginia wins in Blacksburg. So I just think right now on paper, Virginia's roster is just better than Virginia Tech and more proven, right? That's the big difference with Virginia Tech right now. There's a lot of questions there, and they're unproven. It's a new head coach, new different pieces. I mean, a lot of questions at that point. How's their depth going to hold out by the last game of the year? I'm not having those questions on UVA side. I think Virginia did a good job on the depth, so I'm not having that question if the last game of the season for UVA. Like, unlike many other seasons, when I'm saying, well, if this injury happens, this game could turn to Virginia Tech. I don't have that concern as much this year, right? So that's why I think, like, when I'm looking at this game, I give the edge to UVA and Blacksburg.
I think we joke about the offseason champion stuff because that's what James Franklin declared themselves, down in Charlotte. But he's done a great job of changing the narrative there in Blacksburg very quickly, and he's done well in the transfer portal and recruiting. But the common denominator I've seen is it's a lot of younger guys on this roster for Virginia Tech, guys that haven't had as much experience at the college level, and they return a bunch of production from last year, which, I don't know if that's a good thing or not based off how Virginia Tech played last year. But I think that this is the year that, as far as like, I think this is the biggest gap that Virginia is going to have against this Virginia Tech team under James Franklin because of how experienced they are and how not as experienced this Virginia Tech team is yet, especially at the Power 4 level. So I think that Virginia should and will win in Blacksburg. And I think I've talked about it before. This is such a big year for the narrative. I don't think this game is going to matter as much in the ACC, but I think it's going to be a big driving force going into the offseason, going into those in-state recruiting battles, going into the transfer portal of who's got the upper hand in this rivalry. So I'll be a yes too. Greg, where are you going?
Yeah, I think Virginia does have a shot to win in Blacksburg, and one reason why is Virginia Tech's schedule before Virginia shows up in town. I mean, you look at what the Hokies have. It's at Clemson on October 24th, then they get a bye. At SMU, they get a home game against Stanford, then they're at Miami before Virginia comes to town. Like, that's a lot of traveling around, a lot of quality opponent for Virginia Tech, and you just wonder at that point in the season how much gas is left in the tank, so to speak. And football seasons are long, right? And Virginia is the beneficiary because they play week 0. They do have 2 byes, right? And Virginia Tech won't have that, though they get their bye pretty late in the year after that Clemson trip. But I just think with that combined with the difference in age and experience with the rosters, Virginia's older than Virginia Tech. They're going to be a little bit more well rested, I think, at that point in the year, as well as you can be when come week 14, right? But I think that also has something to do with it. If you're a Virginia Tech fan, you don't love that, 2 of the 3 weeks before Virginia shows up, you've been at SMU and you've been at Miami.
Yeah, and you saw the same thing last year. Tech had to play Miami. Virginia was coming off a bye week, and
Yeah.
Tech, they had hired James Franklin at that point, so all the talk was about James Franklin, and then Tech they kind of came out flat in that game against Virginia.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. It's a lot easier to get up when the game's at home at Lane Stadium, so be a little bit different there. All right, ACC finished last year. Let's go from the very beginning. In the preseason, they were predicted to finish 14th in the ACC. Well, they finished, at least in the regular season, they finished first, which is still wild. When I was going back to do this, I was like, that's wild that they finished first in the ACC. They had the best regular season record. Obviously, they lose in the ACC championship game. This year, preseason poll predicted sixth. So a little bit better there. I just had David Hale from ESPN on here, and we're like, pretty much like 3 through 10 in the ACC. You could see going any different direction. But the question here is where UVA will finish. So, Greg, where do you think UVA will finish?
I've got them third behind Miami and SMU. If the game is in Dallas, they haven't lost a home game yet, and I'm not saying they won't this season, SMU, but that's in league play.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the hesitation there with bumping, thinking Virginia could finish ahead of SMU with that game being in Dallas. That if they win that game, then yeah, it could be a second place finish and head to Charlotte, or a first place finish and head to Charlotte. But as of right now, I'd say third behind Miami and SMU, and then they're in that mix, and I think they're probably the best in that group. I think like Louisville, Clemson, and then you could throw maybe Georgia Tech in there of those next kind of tier of contenders behind Miami and SMU.
Yeah, I have them as in third as well, and it's almost the exact same scenario that you just laid out there. I think maybe they finished the year tied with SMU, but the SMU gets in over the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about the whole tiebreaker right now. That we'll save that for much further down the road. Jacquie, I think you said before you had them third. Are you sticking with third?
Yeah, I chose them in third on the ballot. I'm still sticking with them. I'm kind of the same thought process as well with Miami and SMU there. Again, I have on when I did my game by game prediction while I was 24/7, I gave the edge to SMU in Texas. So with that, I chose SMU in second.
We're all third, so this is like the college game day curse. So if they won't finish third next year, so maybe they finish better, maybe they finish a little worse. We'll see. Record predictions. I did a podcast this summer going through the entire schedule and trying to pick every single game, and I kind of came out of that and was like, gosh, that was way too many wins. And then I'm sitting here again today, and I'm just like, well, I don't think they're going to lose any of their non-conference games. Like they're playing Norfolk State, Delaware, and that neutral site game against West Virginia. I don't think they're going to lose any of those games. And so if I'm saying they're going to finish third in the ACC, you got to finish like 7-2, you would think, right? If you're going to be that high up in the conference race, and I'm predicting that they'll finish tied with SMU. So that by default gets me to 10-2 and 7-2 in the ACC, and that seems crazy, but here I am, hammering the over on the 7.5. Jacquie, where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat, right? I picked them third, and the reason why they didn't finish second was because they lost to SMU. That's how like my thought process is when I was looking at game day. And I'm kind of the same way with you when I was doing game by game. I gave the edge to Virginia most of the time. SMU was the one loss, and then I felt like the Wake Forest game at home was a trap game a little bit when I saw them. I think Wake Forest could be a little bit better than we think. So when I was looking at it, I was like, that game looks a little bit trappy. I also gave, there's always one game for Virginia where they might not come 100%. I've covered Virginia enough that I always have that one game where I don't quite know what to expect in that game. I also covered the ACC Coastal for so long, and the Coastal curse still lives on. So I always have that one game, but I do think when I looked at the schedule, and even like giving a little buffer on that Florida State game too, like at Florida State. So I do think 7-2 in the ACC, 10-2 overall, and even like ESPN has them at 9-3. So I do think 10-2 is a reasonable record if you're thinking they're going to finish third.
Greg, where you at?
And this is the most boring podcast in the world. 10 yeah, I mean,
It's tough.
The 10-2 feels right for this group. And to me, if you're 10-2, you're in the thick of the ACC race for it to get to Charlotte, which is what I think this team expects to be in, right? They expect to be in the hunt again and be, perhaps on the cusp of a college football playoff appearance. And I think 10-2 puts you in that range. And with the only major concern, right? We haven't touched on that yet, like, is the wide receiver group. Now, if the passing game totally flops, right, and the receivers don't pan out, because it's been a storyline in training camp. Like, the group is a little, just to say it like it is, it's a little underwhelming right now going into the year. Now, Des Kitchings, the OC, and the offensive staff, Tony Elliott included in this, has been creative at times throughout their careers to highlight their top playmakers, right? When a couple years ago, when Malik Washington was the best player on the field for them, they found ways to get him the ball. So they'll do their best to highlight. And what they didn't have at that time was a downhill road grading running game, which should help kind of elevate what their potential is with that offensive line. So that's why. But if the passing game totally flops, like, you could see eight wins, or you could see 9 wins. Like, that to me is kind of their floor is 8 wins. That's where I see their floor at, and that's if they get really nothing out of their receivers, and the transfers they brought in don't really work out. But I think at least one will pan out. They'll find ways to use the tight ends. I think their tight end room is maybe a little better than people are giving it credit for. So I think 10-2. The SMU game, the Florida State game, the game in Blacksburg, those games won't be easy. I have a hard time seeing them win all three of those. And then you throw maybe one in there. Like, I think that Cal game was not easy last year in the Bay Area, and in Berkeley, and that was one they had to find a way to win. Cam Robinson's pick six, in which he could have went down for a knee with less than a minute to go, was dramatic. But I think 10-2 feels about right. Unless the passing game flops, then we'll see.
And I made this point to someone, like, if you were going to be weak at one position on the roster, wide receiver is probably one of the easier ones to cover up. Like, you could, if you're weak on the offensive line, you're dead on arrival. Like, we've seen that seen that script
those first 2 years of Tony Elliott era.
It didn't matter what else was happening. Like, they had no offensive line, and same thing on the other side. If you have no defensive line, like, you're not doing much. And so I think wide receiver's one of the easier positions to kind of cover up. But yeah, it could be a challenge as far as the passing game. I looked at last year. Greg and Jacquie, you were both at 7-5 for Virginia. I was at 8-4. Look at me, Mr. Optimist last year, 8 wins.
How about that?
And still very, very low on their eventual win total. Obviously, we're not counting, ACC championship game potential, or bowl game, or college football playoff, or whatever postseason stuff. All right, we were just talking about the passing game, and so, we don't do, like, we're getting into our stat leaders now and our awards for the predictions for this season. So, like, we don't do, like, passing leader, because obviously, like, whoever's named the starting quarterback, you pretty likely they'll be the passing leader unless something happens. So I was looking through some of the stats. Last year was the first year that a Tony Elliott quarterback in Virginia had more than 2,200 passing yards in the season. Chandler Morris finished with 3,000 yards. It's also the first season that a quarterback had more than 11 touchdown passes, with Chandler Morris finishing with 16. So seeing that, and seeing Bo Perbula's, like, career averages, or his career high last year, which he missed a couple games, but he finished with 1,941 yards passing and 11 touchdown passes. Does Bo Perbula throw for more or less than 2,500 yards and 15 touchdown passes this year, Greg?
Like, 2,500 kind of feels about right.
Yeah.
I think that range is about right. I'm going to go slightly over with that. He missed a couple of games last year, and Missouri was. I mean, I know Virginia's going to be more run heavy this year, but gosh, Missouri was really run heavy a season ago with Ahmad Hardy, toting the rock for the Tigers, and then being really good on the ground. And I think Virginia with the way it wants to operate with running the ball, play action, using the tight ends, particularly in the red zone. Like I see a path to Prbula getting to that 2,500 yard mark. So I'll go over there slightly.
Okay, Jackie.
So I actually will probably go less than. Um, I think for me, I think they're going to have some different packages that they're going to run. Just from hearing stuff from training camp, Eli Holstein has really shown a really good pocket presence and poise. And I feel like having him, he doesn't have to sit out, right? He has 2 years of eligibility left. There's no sitting out left.
Yeah.
I can see them throwing him in there for certain packages in the red zone or something like that, just to throw everybody off a little bit. So I can see him taking a few of those potential passing yardage in the red zone area for Virginia or some other packages there. So, and I still think Bo Pribula, although he won't be run first, I think that background of his where he's still gonna go leg first in some of those occasions. That's something he's trying to work himself out of, but I think it's still gonna happen. So
Yeah.
I that's why I'm gonna kind of go a little bit less. Then I do kind of agree with Greg. 2,500 seems to be the right amount. So I'm gonna go slightly less. So this is kind of like Price is Right, right? I'm gonna go slightly less.
I'm going to go under as well, and mostly by design. And I don't think this is any indictment on Bo as a quarterback. I think it's more just like, we have these questions at wide receiver. We don't have a lot of questions on the offensive line. There's no questions almost. And I think you don't really have any questions in the backfield, really. Like, you know that those parts are going to be strong. And I think we know that they're going to want to use Bo as a runner this year. And we're going to have some different packages and some different stuff. I was surprised that Chandler only threw 16 touchdown passes last year. And it's because when they get into the red zone, like, what did they do? It was just give it to Jamari Taylor, get into the end zone. And I think we're going to see some of that too. Cause, talking to Tony Elliott, he said that, they might try some different stuff in those short yardage situations, but at the end of the day, he really wants the running backs to handle the bulk of that. And so if the running backs are going to handle that, then that's a couple touchdown passes that you're probably not going to throw. So I'll be interested to see. But yeah, I'll go slight under here as well on that mark. I try to come up with the best over-under mark for Pribula based off of UVA and based off his career averages. So I think I hit the right spot with 2,500 and 15 touchdowns. All right, rushing leader. I'll go rushing leader and then like a secondary follow-up question. Does Virginia have another 1,000-yard rusher on this team? Jackie, we could start with you.
Middlebrook for me, just because of all the attention that he's getting. And even in the close scrimmages, I mean, we've heard that he's whipped out some long touchdowns, long runs in those as well. I think for me, I think there could be another 1,000-yard rusher but the issue for me too is thinking like, man, they have so many running backs. And they're not going to want to put all the reps on Middlebrook alone. They don't want, Jamari Taylor situation where he was hobbling his way towards the end of the season. They want to make sure those guys are fresh. So I don't know, like I'm not as confident that they'll reach 1,000 yards. I think they're going to have, ironically, I think they're going to have more rushing yards this year. But I just don't know if there's going to be one guy with 1,000 yards. Just because when you look at it, I mean, Middlebrook is obviously going to get his reps in. Xavier Brown's going to have his contribution and his packages that they want to use him without, overusing him. I think Noah Vaughn is going to be your surprise in the running back room this year if he remains staying healthy and consistent. Solomon Beebe has been the underrated guy in that room. So I feel like, and then obviously Peyton Lewis, I even touched on him. So I just think with the separation and with all these different running backs that UVA will have, I think Middlebrook will be your leader, but I don't know if he's going to have as much snaps to reach 1,000 yards. But I could be right. Maybe by the time the season goes on, he's just having such a good season, you can't give the ball to anyone else. But right now, when you look at the depth, your mind goes to spreading the ball out to several different running backs.
And that's why I'm going Middlebrook, obviously, but I think that he will get to 1,000 yards this year because I think we saw the same thing with Taylor last year, where it's like early in the year, they're kind of sharing the ball between a couple of different guys, and then obviously injuries hit with Xavier Brown and Noah Vaughn, but I think you also just saw like this kid's really good. And all we've heard all fall camp is that this Middlebrook kid is really good. So I think that he will get there because I also think that, like you said, Virginia will have more rushing yards this year. They'll be an even better run offense this year. So I think he gets there. Even if he just barely get over there, it still counts. Greg?
Middlebrook will be the leading rusher, no doubt about it. But I don't think he gets to 1,000. I don't think Virginia has an 1,000-yard rusher this year. I think they're going to try to incorporate more running backs, as Jacquie pointed out, because of really Taylor being hobbled at the end of the year. Right, he had to protect himself and not playing a Gator Bowl after really gutting it through the last kind of month of the season. So yeah, I think as long as it'll keep the group fresher, it'll keep Middlebrook fresher. Yeah. You may see certain games where he's the lead guy by a lot, right? You may see him if it's a down to the wire game with SMU or down to the wire at Florida State. Yeah, he's not coming out. But I think because Noah Vaughn has emerged as a pleasant surprise, it seems like he might be number 2 in the pecking order going into the year. And because Xavier Brown's going on his 5th year, like those two guys are going to get some snaps. They're too valuable not to. And then you throw in BB and what he can do as a gadget guy, maybe catching the ball out of the backfield. I have a hard time seeing Middlebrook be that dominant where he can run for 1,000 yards and other guys aren't getting touches.
Yeah. You answered the next question is, who we're going to lean to as that number 2 guy in the run game. Now, Bo Prabula could end up being the second leading rusher on this team because he's going to be on the field. But I think as far as the running backs, it's probably Noah Vaughn. Is that kind of where we would lean?
Yeah. I think we saw a little bit in the spring too. I think there was one note that I remember. There was a couple of practices in the row where I noted that Noah Vaughn seemed to be getting a little bit more reps at that number 2 spot behind Middlebrook until he got hurt. And like just talking to people around the program, it was the same thing. Something that Gaither even voiced at fall camp. His main battle is being available because Noah Vaughn, when he's available, he's one of their best running backs. And a lot of people will voice that to you. It's just he needs to be available. So right now, if he stays consistent, I mean, I would put Noah Vaughn as number 2. And because of the way Xavier Brown and Solomon Beebe are so versatile and how they kind of use, I don't know if I would classify them as the number 2 or number 3, because those guys are going to be used in different gadgets. And obviously we all know about the wheel route for Xavier Brown. So I think that's why I feel like Noah Vaughn has cemented his role as a number 2 as long as he's healthy.
He looked like the second best running back early in the season last year for Virginia. In those early games.
He had a 100-yard game, right? Against William & Mary?
Yeah.
Against William & Mary. And that's the same game that he got injured. So we never saw anything past that. And I think that, and he had some good plays against NC State where he kind of broke out and Coastal too. So like he showed really well last year. And so if he's just healthy, like you said, I think he'll be a good option there. All right. Probably the most difficult question we'll ask of the day. Who is the receiving yards leader on this team next year? It was Trell Harris last year. He's gone, and so are the top 6 of 7 leading receivers from last year. So, take your pick, Jacquie. Who do you want?
Why did I have to go first? So if I would just go through fall camp, right? If I had just go through what you heard from fall camp, I would have to pick Jaquan Gibson because he can play outside, he can play inside. He's been the most consistent of the wide receivers this fall camp. And he's been the one that if you talk to players, everyone talks to him about. He's hardworking. He's been there. He's the first one in, last one out. I think the one that for the potential is Deshaun Martin. Mm-hmm. I think he's the one that could if he's consistent and available. I think the issue with him is availability right now. He had a hamstring injury, I think, in the spring, another soft tissue injury now in fall. So he hasn't been consistent enough. But in the scrimmage he was available for, he had some of the best from talking to people. He had a couple of the most athletic catches out there for a touchdown. It was more like one person said it was a one-handed catch in the end zone. And they were all very impressed of what he was able to do in those scrimmages. So my mind thinks like that would be who could be like a Trill Harris type from last year, kind of getting those long catches. Um, so gambling me would pick Deshaun Martin. Just if he can be available enough. Like asterisk Jaquan Gibson will probably be it if he can't stay available, but I think Deshaun Martin can be it if he's the guy who's available for them.
All right, I'm locking you into Martin. I like that.
Okay.
That was my guy coming into camp, but like you said, the consistency, and so I'm just like I'm playing it safe, and I go with Gibson because I feel like he's going to be on the field no matter what. The other guy I kind of battled with was Rico Flores because I think he'll be another guy that's featured. But I went with Gibson in the end. Greg, where'd you go?
Yeah, Flores to me is just he's too much injury history there, right?
Yeah.
Across all his stops, Notre Dame, UCLA, like Virginia, and he's been injured in Virginia's camp with the hamstring issue. Like that to me, like the history of injuries, I wouldn't pick him just for that reason. Gibson last year was 12th in the country in receptions per game. I don't know how much UMass football you watched last season, but that did happen. He is a high receptions type target. So to me, a per game type target. So to me, I think he's going to be the leader in receptions. Last year, his yards per catch was not very high, but he had a lot of catches.
Yeah.
I think to me though, in Virginia's offense, there'll be a little bit more opportunity to have some longer plays, some longer catches. So I'll go Gibson based on history.
Oh
It
man,
just
I'm the
seems
odd one out.
well. No, I like it because I think that it's going to be such a hard position, and like there could be a guy that we didn't even talk about at the end of this because
Like
like
Dylan
this
Pope could have a
yeah,
stellar freshman year.
exactly.
I
This is
honestly
just
thought about Dakota Twitty.
yeah, that's another good one. I thought about that
Like
too.
but that's another guy who's like he's gonna have to stay healthy.
Yeah.
So I went with the guy who put up some numbers that would at least lend itself last year on a lesser team, to maybe make some more plays at UVA.
And even then, Gibson missed time in spring
Yeah,
with injury. So like
yeah.
everyone's missing time. We're still not sure. We're still waiting to see if anyone has separated. I think that's the question every press conference. Has anyone
It's
separated?
it's literally Gibson, right? Gibson's the
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
one who you feel like has solidified a starting role at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, beyond that, the receivers have some questions.
I think he's been the only one that's been available every practice this fall. 'Cause I think even
Yeah.
Dylan Cope might have missed a practice here and there, or at least one practice. But I think
Dylan Newton Short has missed time, and
Dylan did,
Yeah.
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 So he's been the only one that's been consistently there for every single practice.
Well, and you don't know E2, like you might have missed Dylan Cope out at a practice because he changed his numbers in the middle of fall camp. So try to keep up with that. All right. Last two for the offense. Offensive MVP. I went with Middlebrook here. I think that they're going to use him in just a lot of different ways this year as a receiver. And I just think he's going to really ingrain himself. Maybe he doesn't get 1,000 yards, but I still think that by the end of the day, he's going to be a really valuable player for this offense. Greg, you can go next.
Perbula, quarterback.
Stick with the quarterback.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to make some plays with his legs for this team to be really good. And his factoring, I mean, I could have went with the O-line. Like I guess if O-line was an option, I probably would have went with O-line. But if we're going individual player, I'll go Perbula. I just think he's won some big games. He's played in some tough environments. Chandler Morris was really, really a difference maker for Virginia last year, and I think Perbula's got the ability to do some of the same things.
One of the conversations I had recently it was like, all right, it was ESPN's David Hale. He basically like the three things that I look at with the team, and it's like, how are you up front on the offensive line? If you're good there, Virginia's good there. How are you down the middle on defense? And Virginia's good there. You got Cam Robinson, one of the best players in the ACC in the country when he's healthy. Yeah. And then what do you look like at quarterback? And that's kind of the only one that you're like not completely sure about because even though Bo Perbula finally got a chance to be a starting quarterback last year, we didn't get to see like the full thing. And I think there's even more to that. You mentioned the Missouri offense earlier.
Yeah.
Every conversation I've had with the Missouri beat reporters last year leading up to the Gator Bowl and even afterwards was that this offense just like never developed a passing game because the offensive line was great in the run. They could not pass block.
Right.
And so he was not taking deep steps, and it's just the passing game never developed for that team last year. And there's even some talk about the offensive coordinator who's now left and it's taken over at Washington State as the head coach. But I think there's more there. So we still don't know the full picture with Bo Prabula, I think, in the same way that maybe we did with Chandler Morris. Jacquie, your MVP pick on offense.
I agree with Greg on all points because I would pick the O-line as your offensive MVP because that's the big difference for me. But if we're gonna pick Virginia to be 10-2, be third in the ACC, Bo Prabula has to be your offensive MVP too. If all the points that have just been talked about too, you need a good quarterback. You need a quarterback that leads. I mean, at the end of the day, the reason why Virginia won 11 wins was because of a guy called Chandler Morris leading that offense. Yeah. The only reason why they lost the game against Wake Forest was because Chandler Morris was not the quarterback in that game after he got hurt and Daniel Kalen took over. So Bo Prabula has to be the difference maker for Virginia for them to be at that 10-2 mark, fighting for ACC championship or a college football playoff berth. So I will pick Bo Prabula as the offensive MVP.
All right, offensive under the radar, and this is just someone that maybe is not getting enough talk about in the preseason. I'm going to go with. We keep talking about the offensive line, but we talk about the offensive line as a unit, or we talk about Mikhail Boley and Noah Josie because they've been around forever. But I want to give some shine to Michaelan Thomas because this is a guy who came in with a lot of talk last year. He got through one practice and he was out for the rest of the time. So we haven't talked about as much about him. He was on the athletics freaks list this year, and the guy is a freak. He can back squat 600 plus pounds multiple times, and his shuttle time would have been the fastest from an offensive lineman at the NFL Draft Combine in the last 3 years. So like this guy has got it all, and I think that if he stays healthy this year, I think you're looking at another all ACC type caliber offensive lineman right there in Michaelan Thomas. So just because I think we talked so much about the other guys in the offensive line, I want to highlight him as a guy that's under the radar going into the season. Jacquie, we'll go with you next for under the radar.
Solomon Beebe. I think because the running back room is so crowded, we don't talk to him about him very much. I think he's going to be a guy that has more reps than you expect in that running back room, but also because he is so versatile, they can, if the wide receivers aren't performing as well as they can, he's shown that that's something that he's done. I mean, he was able to perform really well in his last stop, and obviously he's going to be a very big contributor on special teams. But I think because of the way the running back room has been shaped up, no one talks about him. They've talked about Noah Vaughn lately because they've seen him kind of come up a little bit and they understand who he was last year in the spring game and just showing him in a couple of times we've seen flashes. Everyone knows Jaquel Mailbrook because everyone's talking to him. Everyone knows about Payne Lewis because he came from Tennessee. He's a home state kid. Xavier Brown, like we go down the running back list. Everyone has talked about each one. The one they haven't is Solomon Beebe.
Yeah. Greg?
John Rogers.
All right.
Virginia's tight. Do you remember who tied for Virginia's team lead in touchdown catches last year?
It'd be Sage Ennis.
Virginia's tight ends are going to catch some touchdowns again. And Dakota Twitty is the clear-cut number one guy. But I think John Rogers can really help the team, particularly in the passing game. I think you're going to see more 12, more 13 personnel groupings this year because of the problems at wide receiver. So I think you're going to see a little bit more tight end involvement in the passing game. Connor Cox will play too, but I think he's more of a blocking tight end. John Rogers, because they acquired Connor Cox, I think fits in more, and they can utilize his skill set as a pass catcher. He's a former center fielder in as a high school baseball player at Episcopal in Northern Virginia. Sure-handed guy. He's added some weight. Kind of trial by fire last year, getting thrown in at Louisville. Made a key catch in that game. I think John Rogers can have an important season and be an important player for this team.
I like that one. If I had to throw one in that's not like a starter, because I know I listed Thomas, I'll put Eli Holstein. I think they're going to use him sometime this year, and I think it could be pretty fun when they do use him out there. All right, switching over to the defensive side, we'll go a little bit quicker here. Tackles leader. We all predicted last year was going to be the year that finally a linebacker led the team in tackles. It didn't happen. Devin Neal led the team in tackles last year with 88. So we're going with another safety this year because that is what the trend has been, or do we go with a linebacker this year? Does Cam Robinson stay healthy enough, Greg?
I'm going Cam Robinson. This is the year. For the first time since Nick Jackson, a linebacker will lead Virginia's team in tackles. I think he just, as long as he's healthy, and that's a big question, right? He had the collarbone early last year, then the ACL, and you still don't know 100% if he's going to play week 0, right? I would,
Yeah.
having not seen him practice full go yet, I'm starting to question whether or not that's actually going to happen. But I think Cam Robinson and Hillman is the other choice here. But I think Cam Robinson. I'll go with Robinson for this season.
Jackie?
Yeah, I mean, history should tell me to pick Hillman, right? Because that's who I think will be at least the second leading tackler for this Virginia team. But if you look back last year, even after he missed the opening, what was it, 4 games of the year? By the time he went into that Duke game on the road where he got hurt, he was the leading tackler of the team. So, and he had missed the first 4 games of the season. So, if he stays healthy, even if he misses 4 games of the year, I still think Cam Robinson would be the leading tackler. I don't think he's going to miss 4 games of the year, but I'm just saying, like last year, he was on pace to being the leading tackler and he missed a lot of time. So I think Cam Robinson should be the leading tackler of the year, and I'm just giving him the faith that he'll stay healthy this year.
I went back and looked, and somehow, some way, I still predicted Cam Robinson was going to be the leading tackler last year, and it was looking pretty good, even though he missed a bunch of games at the beginning until he got hurt again. I'm gonna go with Brandon Hillman just because I'm gonna listen to history here and go with the safety. But I obviously, if Cam Robinson is out there and he's healthy throughout the whole season, the guy was averaging what 8, 9, 10 tackles a game when he was out there and healthy.
Yeah.
Like, he's gonna lead the team in tackles if he is on the field for every game. I'm just gonna I'll reverse jinx it. So, maybe a linebacker finally leads the team in tackles. Sacks leader. Last year, I had Mitchell Melton. Y'all had Fisher K-Mac. It was Daniel Rickert with 6.5. So who knows this year? I'm going to go
Townsend.
with Justin Townsend. Yeah, there you go. I'm going to go. I know. I'm going to go Fisher K-Mac this year. I think he's going to line himself up for a good year. Where are y'all going for the sacks leader?
I agree with that one because that's the way Fisher came back towards the end of last year. That was his best time, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the year before too. And talking to him, even like during the off season before spring, he was saying that it took him a while to just get used to everything, and he felt like himself. He doesn't have to have that assimilation this year. He's the veteran in that D line. So I would give the edge to him because he's finally comfortable in that role. So I would give the role to Fisher King-Mac.
Greg?
Consensus. You guys have laid out all the reasons there.
All right, so it will be Justin Townsend then. Interceptions leader. Last year, the leader was Jason Brevard with 3. Greg had Brevard last year, so pat on the back for Greg. He did get most of those in one game against Florida State, but they were like 2 of the best interceptions in like UVA program history. So you got to give him that. I'm going with Donovan Platt here. But I'm also going to caveat it because Corey Costner and his ball skills last year were great. He had 2 interceptions as a true freshman. If Costner is just healthy and on the field, I think he's going to make some plays. But I'll go with Platt because he is healthy and he's going to play in pretty much every position on the defense, it seems like. Greg, who do you got for interceptions?
I'm going to go Jacoby Henderson. I think he's kind of flying under the radar a little bit defensively. The transfer cornerback from Rutgers who played at Marshall and was all Sun Belt caliber player there. I think Jacoby Henderson, he's proven veteran player. I think he'll be the guy for Virginia this season to lead them in interceptions.
Jackie?
I would take Emilio Agard, but I agree with you on the Corey Cosner. If Corey Cosner is healthy, he would be my pick if healthy. But until we don't know when he'll be able to come back yet. I think they're expecting him to be available in practice by the time the season starts, but how long he'll be conditioned, ready to go, it's a question mark. But Emilio Agard has been someone that no one, again, because of his injury in the spring, he went from being really excited in the portal to not having talked about a lot. And even during fall camp, although he's been doing well and has been in contact, he has been wearing on and off that green bib. So a lot of people haven't been discussing him. I think he's going to be the sleeper in the defense. But yeah, I would pick him.
You're getting to my pick later on here, but let's go defensive MVP first. Are we going clean sweep Cam Robinson? Is it that
Yeah.
obvious?
Yeah.
Maybe a runner up for Brandon Hillman. Just to name someone else
The
out
two
there.
leading tacklers, right? Robinson and Hillman.
Yeah. I'm really excited about Brandon Hillman. I don't know if y'all saw the Lion video that Virginia football put out there of him, but they're obviously starting to hype him up as well. I think he's going to be a really good player for them in the secondary. Defensive under the radar. Jacquie kind of tipped my pick as well with Emilio Agard. This is a guy that, if you listen to the recent podcast, David Hale, he texted Tony Elliott and said, who is someone that people are sleeping on? And his answer was Emilio Agard. So who am I to argue with Tony Elliott? He knows his team way better than I do. So I'm going to go with Emilio Agard. This is a guy, like Jacquie mentioned, they're really excited about him when they got him in the portal out of Wisconsin. I think he's going to be a really good player. Lots of energy out there. This guy's a hype machine for himself.
Yeah, I mean, I already mentioned him, so I'm going to he's my sleeper in the defense. I mean, it's been consistent of praise. Even when he was hurt and he wasn't even playing the spring, I would get texts talking about how they're excited about the potential of him playing corner opposite Jacoby Henderson. So there were expectations, if he was healthy and he performed what they thought his potential would be in fall camp, that he would be playing opposite of Jacoby Henderson. So I'm picking Emilio too.
Greg, where are you going?
I'm going with Henderson. I just feel like nobody's talking about him. He's good, solid, proven player. I'm going with Henderson.
He's a plug and play guy. Like they got him and they're like, that's one corner right there. He's good.
It's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, like Costner is going to be a great player as long as he can stay healthy. But I think there's kind of a platoon there forming probably with him and Platt. And with Platt, you don't know how exactly it's going to look. He's going to play some nickel, probably going to play some safety, and probably going to play some corner at some point. If Emilio Agard or Jacoby Henderson have to come off the field, so that to me is kind of interesting. But I think with Henderson, he steady. Yeah. You just know what you're going to get when you run him out there.
Yeah,
it's the new DB role, right? There's not nickel spur; it's a new DB.
DB.
Yeah.
Just keep it simple.
Yeah, I'm looking at the roster, and they just have guys listed as defensive back now, as opposed to corner and safety, which they also have listed. So that's what we're going with now, and it's like that's the truth, because this nickel spur role has changed every year. And then last year we saw Caleb Hardy playing that at times on rundowns because they wanted to get some more guys that are bigger tacklers out there. So the role really just changes depending on what the formation is. Special teams MVP. This is one that we left off the first year and we've corrected it, and we need to include some love for the special teams guys. Last year y'all had Cam Ross in this one. I think that one worked out pretty well. He was pretty good in the return game. Solomon Beebe for me, seems like he's going to be pretty good as a kick returner. We saw one kick return in that one scrimmage we went to, and he got the ball to midfield, so he looks pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I pick him too. I mean, I picked him as the under the radar offense, and I'm going to pick him for special teams too.
Daniel Sparks.
See, I went Sparks last year, and so now we're reversing it a little bit. We'll go through. All right, I like it.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to give himself a shot to punt in the NFL with a good season. I think that's kind of where Sparks is at in his career, and in his 7th season of college football, fit at Virginia. I think for him, a good season. The net punting stats. He's been very good throughout most of his Virginia career, I would say. Early on, they had trouble blocking for him. He had a couple punts blocked, I think back to the game against James Madison, the game against Louisville, right? Earlier in his career where they had punts blocked. It seems like they've cleaned up the operation since then. Last year was good. He's got to stay healthy too. He's had some soft tissue stuff throughout his career, but I think Sparks he's a guy who can flip the field, change field position, really set the defense up well. If the offense can't score, I think he's going to have a good year.
He certainly has enough tape for pro scouts at this point after 7
Yeah.
years of college football. All right, that'll do it. We've got all our picks and predictions in, so it's time to see if we're right or wrong coming up in this college football season. Obviously, we get going next week. It's crazy. It's we're middle of August right now recording this, and we're already talking about next week as the opening week for Virginia football. So season's here, and we just gotta buckle up and see where this thing takes us. Greg, Jacquie, thank you for another edition of the good old season preview here. You're 3 for us on this podcast, and always check out Greg's stuff over the Daily Progress and Jackie's stuff over at Wahoos 24/7. Obviously, they've had a ton over fall camp and a lot more to go this season. You can check out thesaber.com as well for all the latest in Virginia athletics, and hit the bell icon, subscribe on YouTube, and follow, subscribe, and leave some of those 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. Really love just the involvement we got last season, and would love to kind of keep growing this. So we will see you next week. We'll be talking about NC State season opener, week 0. We'll see you then.